Okay, good. Yeah, just don't speak too fast. Only reason why, just so everyone knows, and I want you to know, why I didn't have a private conversation with you, because you're going to have questions that are common to people. When I answer your question, I'm going to answer the question for others who have the same question. So I'm recording it for the future, so people come back and have the questions you have, they'll find the answers by the grace and mercy of the Lord Jesus Christ. Okay, so now, go ahead.
Okay, so I have like many questions, so I try to ask the most like common one first.
Sure.
The first one that I have, it's at the temptation of Jesus in the desert. He was tempted by Satan, and we all know the story how it happened. But the thing that I can understand is like, how can Satan tempt part of God or the person?
Yeah, I wouldn't
the son
say part
God?
of God. I would say, how can Satan tempt the eternal Son, who's God in essence? It's an easy question to answer. I've written an article on this, so you're not asking any difficult question. It's too easy to answer, which I will. But number one, I want to ask you a question. How could the Israelites tempt God when God is in their presence and he's not in the flesh? Now, if you have your King James, I want you to go Psalm 106, verse 14. When you get there,
106.
14, verse 14. I want you to get there, and I want you to read it for me, brother.
But lusted exceedingly in the wilderness and tempted God in the desert.
So they tempted God in the desert?
Okay.
So how do they tempt God in the desert? How do you tempt God? How does creatures tempt God? How's that possible? So does that mean God is not God because he was tempted by human creatures? And this song about the Israelites during the time of Moses. Did not the Israelites know this was God?
Of course they knew it was God.
And they still tempted him?
They still tempted him.
But that's the logic you just used. You said, well, how could Satan tempt Jesus if Jesus is God? Well, how could the Israelites tempt God if they knew he's God?
So actually, we as humans, we can tempt God in general?
Sure.
Okay.
But now I'm going to give you more proof. But you understand what your logic was. You understand your logic. Let me explain.
Yes, I understand this.
How can Satan tempt Jesus if Satan knew he's God? The same way the Israelites tempted God. Does that mean they didn't think he was God?
No.
They knew he was God, right?
Yeah, of course they knew.
And they still tempted him. Okay. Now go to Numbers 14:22. Numbers 14:22. 14 verse 22.
Yes, now I have it. Because all those men which have seen my glory and my miracles, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tempted me now these 10 times, and I have not hearkened to my voice.
Okay, now I'm confused, brother. God is in the wilderness with the Israelites. They see a pillar of cloud following them that becomes a pillar of fire by night. They heard the voice of God, and they knew this was God. And God says, they tempted me 10 times already. Already they tempted me 10 times.
Yes, that is true.
Okay, now go to Deuteronomy 6. Deuteronomy, King James now. Deuteronomy 6, verse 16.
Deuteronomy 6, verses
16.
Ye shall not tempt the Lord your God, as ye tempted him in Massah.
Wait. So they did tempt him?
Yeah, they tempted him.
But it says, don't do it like you did. You did it once, don't do it again, right?
Yeah, that is true.
But isn't it interesting? This is the verse Jesus quotes against Satan when he says, you shall not tempt the Lord your God.
That is true.
Okay, so now, remember what your objection was. If Jesus is God, how could Satan tempt God? Now let's apply it to the Old Testament. Jehovah, let's use the word Jehovah. If Jehovah is God, how could Israel tempt Jehovah?
Yeah, that's true. So as in general, God can be tempted.
Yes,
it's not wrong to be tempted.
Let me explain to how temptation works. You can be tempted externally, internally. Internally means that you have desires that can cause you to succumb to temptation. For example, if you're a single man and you struggle with intimacy, a woman comes before you and she tempts you. That's external, right? She's external. She's outside of you, right?
Yes.
But now you have desires for her. Now that's internal. So there's internal temptation, external temptation, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, she's tempting you externally. Now, you start getting tempted internally and you succumb. The Bible is clear. Many people try to tempt God, but because God is God, there's nothing inside God that would cause him to desire those temptations and succumb and fall to them. But that doesn't mean that God himself hasn't been tempted. People tempt God. Till this day, you tempt God by living against his will and living in a manner that disgusts him and angers him. That's tempting God. We tempt God day and night, every day. Anytime a creature does something against God's will and does something that grieves God and angers God, that's tempting God. You're tempting God and defying him to his face. So the Bible is quite clear. People tempt God all the time. Israel tempted God in the desert, right? So for Jesus to be tempted, that doesn't mean he's not God.